Hi, this is Damien Marie AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which is a value theory and a value science atheist. And I am against hereditary religion. And I have a guest. Go ahead and tell us your name and explain about your atheism a little bit.
Right. So my name is McJaring Kayakap. I'm a Filipino. I'm based in Manila, Philippines. And I am the National Events Officer in charge of the Humanist Alliance Philippines International. It's a non-government organization, non-profit organization, founded by our dear Chairman Emeritus Marisa Langsith. Everybody's based in the Philippines. We have allies in the U.S. and all over the world. And I'm delighted to take part in this discussion today.
Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and say the three topics that I've already addressed, and then we can go ahead and you can tell us a little about what you think about them.
Right. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So the first topic is religious freedom rights versus child rights. And so to me this has to do with, and I talk about this already, is Article 14 of the Conventions of Rights of the Child, the commentary of the United Nations Convention on Rights of Child. So I'll go ahead and read Article 14. Article 14, number 1, states that parents shall respect the rights of the child to freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion. Freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, so it's a thing. So then number 2 states parents shall respect the rights and duties of the parent and, when applicable, legal guardian to provide direction to the child in the exercise of his or her rights in a manner consistent with the evolving capacities of a child. Number 3 is the freedom to manifest one's religion or belief may be subject only to the limitations as are prescribed by law and necessary to protect the safety and order and health, morals, and fundamental rights of others. So, to me, just real quick to sum it up, so to me, Article 14 is basically establishing, without being so clear, that a child has a right to their own self, their own belief or not belief, their own development, and the parent is not supposed to indoctrinate, force the belief, but is supposed to cultivate the child's desire to use their rights to form the belief. That's how I perceive it. Go ahead and tell me if you have any ideas.
Right. That's it's really a good thing that we have these policies by United Nations and even our local government's policies, about rights and about empowering children, about trying to make them autonomous, trying to make their own decisions as early in their lives as possible. But then again, happening is they're left as that, just plain policies. It's not really being put into practice. Although although I'm in Manila, I'm in the Philippines, I'm very much aware that in the U.S. there's pretty much a big population of religious fanatics, sects here and churches here and there. We have case in point, we have the Amish church, that has grown double in just a matter of 10 years, the population. And it's really such a waste of policy if nobody is really putting them into good practice. It really boils down into our government having this strong political will to educate the parents, educate not just the existing parents now, but educate the children, the teens or the young adults,
right,
how parenting should go. should happen in the event they become a parent, when they get pregnant and then they give birth to their first child, how things should go going forward, so that from that generation on, the way of parenting would somehow change, and it will not be totally subjective already. We won't leave it to the future parent to decide, but somehow the government, I think, should really intervene. If it doesn't want to be swallowed by these churches, if they want to establish true separation, church matters against state matters. When the people's health is at stake, when the people's future is at stake, although the state can always respect everyone's right to pick a religion or believe in a religion, it all boils down to, keeping the humanity a sustainable species, on this planet. And so I think it really, at this point, it just really boils down into our own governments having strong political will, to impose the policies, and at the same time for existing parents and, future parents to be really open about these things. It's really close-mindedness that we unwillingly or unconsciously break the policies that our governments provide, and at the same time also these things do not break the cycle that has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. So something has to be done, not just on the part of the government, it has to be on the part of the citizens too, from within oneself.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that the United States, if I remember right, is one of the large countries that would not ratify child rights. And I find that to be disgusting. I mean, to think that somehow you only get rights as an adult, that just, how can that even be okay? I mean, so they're not human? They're not, it's just, I have a problem with how it's treated. I was also interested in hearing what is since you're from the Philippines, what is for people that are watching that maybe don't know, what is religion like in the Philippines? Like what's the, like in America, one of the common religions is Christianity. What is it like in the Philippines?
Right. Well, any tourist who has gone to the Philippines would know that the Philippines is predominantly Catholic.
Okay.
We were free people until the Spanish came and took over our lands. One way so that they could make us follow them was to introduce Christianity.
Yeah.
So the very first days, weeks of their landing on one of our islands here in the Philippines, they thought of putting up a cross and then introducing the religion to the native people. And then the native people, the Filipinos are from the Malay race. We are naturally Pacific Islanders by racial category, and so we are naturally hospitable people. And so our Filipino natives accepted them, welcomed them, trying not to offend them, and then embrace that religion that was introduced to them. And then this is one factor that was very crucial in Spain's way of conquering the whole country from just one island till the very ends of the whole archipelago. And that went on for over 300 years. And after over 300 years, we thought we're going to be free men again, until we got sold to the Americans through the Treaty of Paris. And although the Americans had introduced some sort of secularism at the beginning, with they sent female teachers to the archipelago, teaching the natives how to speak English, how to write English, how to read books in English, because before they came, all we knew was our own native language, and then the Spanish language. And so they were successful in educating Filipinos, but there were also an opportunity for some Americans to introduce their own churches,
Right.
The Protestants and other Christian sectoral churches that has been already established in America at that time, and so that created a diversity in the Philippines. But going back to the time before the Spanish people came, I mentioned that we are Malay people, we are Pacific Islanders. Much of the people in the Pacific Islands either believe in animated in objects with animated spirits.
Right.
If not, they believed in Islam. So down south of the Philippine archipelago, much of the population there had already believed in Islam before the Spanish came.
Really?
Right. And then the Spanish came, the Americans came. So this created a melting pot, not just of culture, not just of bloodlines, but also a melting pot of religion. We have very much dominant in the south of the Philippine archipelago, and then the middle part and then the northern part of the archipelago, it's predominantly Catholic, although we already have established our own churches here, sectoral churches here, pretty much, pretty many of them already by this time. And so why it is important for me to participate in this discussion is because if there is a country that has to be living proof of hereditary or involuntary religion, it would be the Philippines, because just like many other people in the world, whether they were forced to believe Christianity or otherwise, or any other religion for that matter, let's say Buddhism or Hinduism, we were not given a choice from the beginning. We were given early indoctrination. We were given Christian names or whatever.
Right.
We were enrolled in Catholic or Christian
schools, probably.
Christian priest-run schools. In the Philippines, the prestigious schools are not the public schools.
Right.
It's the Catholic schools that are really prestigious in this country. Now, very expensive universities, and that's why even though a family isn't Catholic or Christian, they would enroll the child in that university because of the name it carries and the prestige they can take along and in the future, when they look for a job and when they seek opportunities in the country or even overseas. So it's really, if there's one of many countries that would be glad to talk about this, it's the Philippines, really, because there was no moment that we had to pick, and I think also many people in the U.S. would relate to this. But then again, we aren't as liberated as Americans, as you can see. We've been conquered for a few decades. Yes, we were a territory of the U.S. for some time. We have learned a little of liberalism, but not totally. It's really in our blood to follow the parents, and then carry on what has been passed on to us. And then I as a Filipino who grew up in that kind of environment and with that kind of history, it took me until 5 to 7 years ago to finally turn to humanism.
Yeah.
What happened was that, just like many other humans on this planet, a lot of things going on in your life. you feel like nothing's going right, or when you thought that things are going right, you suddenly notice it's not totally right now. These things, these dramas, and so on and so forth. So what I did was, I noticed that going to church wasn't really helping.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that the good things that has happened to me, it's because of the decisions I made, and it's because of the people I was with, that influenced my decisions. It's because of the pressure that the public media has imposed on me in order to live this right as great as or as best as possible. And so I took a few steps back and imagined that I'm looking at my life from a different perspective, and I just looked at it and say, no, this doesn't look right. It's like I went out of my body. This is just imagery I'm talking about. Just
right.
like I took a few steps back and looked at myself and how I lived my life so far, and I realized that it's not because it's not because of the mercy of an unseen God.
Right.
It's because I made a wrong decision. I had to face the consequences because I messed up, or I did great. That's why I know this much. I did great. That's why I had a good job, and so I decided to slowly get myself off the religion bandwagon. I stopped attending church, attending Sunday service. I was a Catholic, by the way.
Okay.
Because in this country, Catholic and Christian people are different now. They're not one and the same, unlike before. And then my family and relatives started noticing that. But since since I was lucky to be brought up in a family that is very open-minded and not too intervening, if I may call it that way. They let me be, but they remind me once in a while, that when something comes up, when something negative comes up, they always have to whisper to my ear something like, God is calling you. Jesus is calling you. You've been gone for so long. You have to come back.
Oh, yeah.
And so on and so forth.
Guilt
and I was
trip.
like, no, it's okay. This is just for the moment. This is just for a few days or a few weeks or a few months. It's gonna go away, just like any other issues I had in my life. So no, I'm still good. I'm still alive and kicking. No, I'm not depressed or whatever. I'm not so down. And talking about being depressed, being so down, I think this is really the kind of emotions, being down, being sad, being helpless, being hopeless. These are the kinds of emotions that religion is really trying to take advantage of. When people cannot do much about what they have, if their means are not meeting the ends, and when they have nobody or nothing to use to elevate themselves in life, you suddenly notice the church coming into the picture and telling them, you've done something wrong in your life. This is a punishment, or from the heavens, something like that, or it's okay. God loves you. Somebody loves you from up there. Come in. Let's talk. Let's have a meal together. And then they started talking people into it, and so on and so forth. And so since people doesn't have any concrete way out of their situation, they just really stuck into the person, that invited them over to talk them into attending church perhaps, or maybe converting into a particular church religion. And this is very prevalent in the Philippines. I won't even talk about the rest of the archipelago. I'll just even talk about the capital, Manila. We are a very densely populated city. Like many other cities in Asia, and And the more people you have in a particular region, the more likely you are able to talk people into something, not just into buying things, or into joining organizations or into signing up for maybe a business sideline, but to joining a religion per se. Billboards. We have this huge popular highway in Manila, and many of the billboards are even religious. You'd see seminaries. Yeah, you'd see seminaries along the highway, churches built along the highway, billboards. And then when a billboard isn't when a billboard is not in use, meaning nobody has leased it so far,
right,
to post an advertisement, they still put something there, usually in black, and then in white text, God misses you. And it's a black billboard. Nobody has leased it yet. They put their God misses you or I still love you by Jesus. And then they leave a mobile number at the bottom so that people can contact the number if they want to lease the billboard space. So religion is taking advantage of people, and people in return are taking advantage of religion. It's a two-way process.
Right.
Religion is popular. People take advantage of it because religion has the people they need.
Right.
Religion has the people businesses need to thrive in such a highly competitive industry. And then not just businesses but politics. If let's say a mayor of a city in Manila or maybe a congressman in the city of Manila would like to run for office, of course it's very not just political affiliations, but religious affiliations. They would visit pastors. They would visit parish, visit a parish in the city, perhaps, and try to talk the priest into getting support for his candidacy, for his or her candidacy in the upcoming election. And so the priest would go, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll try to help. And then Sundays after, during homily, you notice the priest trying to mention a little bit about the mayor, talking people into voting this candidate, and so on and so forth. And we always believed that there's always money involved. Maybe a big donation from this candidate to the church, and in return a little sales talk for the people attending Sunday service. It's as simple as just talking. Then you get so much money in return. Perhaps we don't see that happening in public, but it's always something covert happening, under the table, behind the curtains. It's really crazy. And so these things, since they've been happening for tens of years, if not hundreds of years, they have grown. Filipinos, particularly in the capital, have grown. So
let's address specifically the second one, which was child's religious freedom rights violations. The fact that child is actually getting their rights violated. In other words, a scholarly study generally focuses children's rights by identifying them with individual human rights. In other words, the following rights allow the children to grow up healthy and free. And that is freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom from fear, freedom of choice, and the right to make decisions, and then ownership over one's body. And to me, can you go ahead and say your thoughts on the relation of that, the child's freedom rights violation? In other words, that a child never had a chance to figure out. I like to say that a child before 7 years old can't really think enough even to make a decision anyways, because they're too much of an animistic, magical thinker about all of reality, because they're just learning. They don't know. Child 3 years old can't make a decision of which religion is true. I mean, so to me, it's a violation against them to demand that they make a choice, or that because they actually can't. And so to me, it's a violation of their freedom of speech. That's not their voice you're hearing. When they say, a child 3 years old says, I have a religion, you're not hearing their freedom of speech. You're hearing the parents. When you're not hearing the freedom of thought from the own child. They don't know why they believe that. They were told they believe this, so they believe it. And then to me, freedom from fear. A child has a right of a freedom from fear. Telling a child that the minimal things they do in this life, speaking of like often like for religion, not believing in the religion, deserves torment, torture, death, ostracization. Those are all these fears. In fact, I was 36 and I still was afraid I was going to lose all my family. The fear of just not believing. And so to me, the child should be free of that fear that they're somehow their love from their parents going to be gone just because they don't believe. And then to me, freedom of choice. The child never made the choice. So they never had the right to choose. I mean, most people wouldn't expect a child to buy a house, even if they had the money. Because they're not old enough to make that kind of decision generally.
Right. I read something about these policies by United Nations, about child rights. I think there are two advocacies when it comes to child rights by people of the United Nations. It's either to empower a child,
right,
to be as autonomous as early on as possible, maybe as soon as they started learning a language fluently, and trying to recognize things and people around them, situations around them. And the other advocacy was, since children are naturally vulnerable, is to their advocacy is to protect these children from abuse.
Yeah.
Different sorts of abuse. So it's either they're being abused physically, emotionally, psychologically, or their vulnerability is being used to introduce them to a religion, that's already taking advantage of their vulnerability. And so it is very, very important that if I remember it right, they were also since children have very much similar rights as the typical individual,
they
the
should.
regular adult. Right. So why wasn't there a practice of giving him a choice? It's very important that you give them a choice other than what is at hand. And, like if they want strawberry or chocolate for their cake, or if they want chicken or beef for dinner, something like that. I think it should also be as easy as that when it comes to having our children decide for their religion. Like, okay, honey, this is what I believe in. I think Jesus is good,
Right.
He died for our sins and so on and so forth. Maybe you may would like to read up on Jesus' life. You would want to know what miracles he did, during his life and how he inspires goodness, and let me know what you think. It's not like that, right? It's just, okay, honey, we're going to church. Come with me. Put on your best dress. We're going to the church, and then we're meeting the pastors after. We're going to have lunch with them. This kind of practice by parents actually makes the children more vulnerable, and not just vulnerable. It's all, since the children are being robbed of the right to really choose true choice, not just choice by policy, but real choice.
Right.
They are almost made into a minority. Because, like any other minorities, they have to be protected because they're
right, yeah,
vulnerable.
children, I agree with you. Children are like a minority. where there certainly are a vulnerable thing of society that do not have they can't look out for themselves. They don't have the political power or any power really. And so I agree. If we don't look out for them, who will? I mean, they can't look out for themselves. We won't certainly give them power to do that in society, to take over or something. I mean, child. So we are then obligated.
Right, exactly. And so, if they are a minority, there's more reason to intervene in these kinds of matters, because who would look out for them? These children, like we have been calling them, they're very vulnerable. They don't know what's going on pretty much in their younger years, and so it is up to the adults, other than their parents and families, or aunts and uncles, or grandpas and grandmas, to guide them, even teachers for that matter. Sometimes teachers, even in a public school, can talk their students into attending service, and so on and so forth. And so, what we definitely respect everyone's right to pick a religion, or have a religion, or even the lack thereof, But I think that has to go down to the roots, your children, your very family. But then again, I came across this question. While I was doing research for this discussion, I came across a question from a user, from an online user.
Okay.
He asked everybody in the forum, if a parent thinks that believing in a religion would do himself good, the parent, let's say a mother, would do herself good, and has done herself good, and it would teach, it has taught her good values, it has taught her how to live life well, and so on and so forth. Wouldn't it be hypocrisy if she doesn't teach it to his or her children?
Well, to me, that's two separate issues. Hereditary religion is not the same as saying you cannot teach, that I don't think that someone could tell their children about religion or non-religion. I hear atheists that go, I don't want to tell them nothing. Like somehow we have to be neutral. I don't think we have a requirement to be neutral. We do. There is a difference between being neutral and then being oppressive. I mean, I think that a parent has a right to tell the political party they have. That doesn't mean a child will pick a political party, or even is legally allowed to. You see what I'm saying? So it's not that, you certainly can have it around. You could talk to it, playing on TV, debates in front of the child with people, but debating the child, no. Helping them to think, providing them information if they have questions. If they say, I want to know about your religion, I absolutely believe a parent has a right to tell the child. The same with an atheist. Right. If the child says, Damien, why are you an atheist? I will tell him. I don't debate children though, because I feel like they don't really understand. They don't, and I don't attack their thinking. I provide this stuff. I let them think on themselves. So I don't think that's neutral. I think it's just, respecting them. And so
respecting the children's vulnerability. Yes.
Yeah, respecting that they have a right. They have a right to themselves separate of me. That they have a right as a valid person. That their ideas should be, allowed to fulminate in their own mind. That I don't have to try to make you believe as I believe. To me, that's what I have the problem with. What I consider hereditary religion is the fact that, because, say if I'm an atheist, if I have a child, hereditary atheism would be that child is now an atheist. Because I am. From birth they're an atheist. Because I am. And they'll stay an atheist because I am. That would be hereditary atheism. That it's a forced thing. That I tell them, here's these shirts that say atheist. Well, I'm not sure what I believe. That's fine. You're going to wear this. Because it's true. You're going to wear it. And you're going to do this thing, You're gonna go to these groups. You're gonna listen to this stuff. You're gonna read this stuff. You're gonna recite Friedrich Nietzsche to me, or whatever, Socrates or something. I mean, that to me is wrong, even if for an atheist to do, because I believe that you are abusing the. To me, I don't think a parent owns the child. They have a responsibility for them. Different.
Right. That's true.
And so to me, that's the mindset that I hear a lot of religious people have this mindset. It's my child. I brought him into the world. Take him out. I have the right to them. Like somehow you have rights over them and they don't have human rights anymore. And I just, that's a real problem. And I don't know about the Philippines, but in America, there's states in America that make it okay if you do abuse to your child as long as you did it for religion. That's ridiculous. Abuse is abuse. You mean if you hit a kid, the atheist goes to prison, but if you're a theist and you say, I hit a kid and made him bleed or whatever, but it's because of God, somehow there's some things that they allow you to get away with and you don't. I mean, I want all that done. There should be no exemption. Abuse is abuse. If it's abuse for an atheist, it's not magically not abuse for religion.
Right. Abuse for one is abuse for everyone else.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's like me saying that abuse for someone in America is different than abuse for someone in the Philippines. Abuse is abuse. You're a human. I'm a human. A child is a human.
Right.
To me,
exactly.
It's just like.
Right. And our bodies are comprised of the same pain receptors. You know, when we get physically abused, when you get emotionally abused, it all goes up to the same part of the body, the same part of the body, the head, where it has the brain. Now that's hypocrisy.
Oh, definitely.
Trying to keep the negative label to somebody else, and in return making yourself look good and very positive and all. And now I've come across this information online about we call this about, almost forgot.
Well, we can talk about the next subject right now. So the next subject is on religion's harm and what is a way to stop its rights violation. Like how do we get some ideas of how to stop it? One of the things is to identify the problem. In fact, there was a psychologist that came up with the term called religious trauma syndrome. And I'm going to go ahead and read right now what she says that means. So according to Dr. Madeline Wendell, I think that's her name. Okay, religious trauma syndrome, RTS, is a set of symptoms, characteristics that tend to go together, which are related to harmful experiences with religion. They are the result of two things: immersion in a controlling religion and the secondary impact of leaving the religious group. RTS label provides a name and a description for the affected people will often recognize immediately. Many other people are surprised by the idea of a term like religious trauma syndrome. Usually religious people, because of course religion's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Many people are surprised by the term because in our culture it is generally assumed that religion is benign, is harmless. In fact, it helps and it's good or good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But just like telling kids about Santa Claus and letting them working out their own beliefs later, people see no harm in teaching religion to children. But in reality, religious teaching and practices sometimes cause serious mental health damage. The public is somewhat familiar with sexual and physical abuse in the religious context. As journalist Jeanette goes on to say, the family structure and the use of harsh parenting methods can be destructive in a religious context. And usually religious promote a harsher parenting.
Mhm.
Especially fundamentalists. Maybe your liberal ones don't, but fundamentalists, that's more prone towards.
Right,
Okay.
right.
But the problem isn't just physical and sexual abuse, but also emotional and mental torment and treatment in authoritarian religious groups can also be damaging. Because, one, toxic teachings like eternal damnation, hell, or original sin, that you're born already wrong. Religious practices or mindsets such as punishment or eternal punishment, black and white thinking, sexual guilt, and three, the neglect from parents or a person in charge, having information being held from them, opportunities to develop normally reduced.
Mhm. Well, this just reminded me of what I read about cognitive ease. When people of logic, people of reason like myself and yourself, kind of really use our brain much to process things, to analyze things,
Right.
to find logic and reason to things before we make a judgment, before we make a decision, before we describe it, perhaps, before we finally conclude a perception of something. Cognitive ease is very convenient because it uses less energy for the mind to think and analyze and question and challenge something, or to even research about something. If it's too much for a person to do that, they take the convenience of just believing it.
Oh yeah.
Especially if it would favor them, if it would favor the person, if it would save him or her the time and effort to find reason to everything. He or she easily jumps to a conclusion that this is right, this is good, this is the best thing to do, and that's why religion can be a convenient harm. It is harmful in the long term if people do not give it much thought as soon as possible. It is convenient in the short term because, when there are many things on this planet that you cannot explain yourself, or maybe you're just not aware what causes these things, phenomena, or maybe political scenes or whatever, you resort to just concluding that, oh my, this must be the wrath of God. This must be the big punishment that the Bible has been saying. So they resort to believing what they've been told to because it's convenient, it's easy, it's comfortable, And again, this is this kind of laziness, this kind of withdrawing from the need to put effort, into analyzing things that the church is trying to invest in, because, the church just would like you to truly believe what is written, what is being prophesied, what is being told of you, without much discussion. That's why we have this part of the Eucharistic Mass called the homily, where people sit down and listen. There is no exchange. People just listen to the priest while he gives sermon. For sometimes it takes an hour, half an hour. People just nod their head, twitch a little, maybe, put out their fan when it's hot, drink some water, tend to their children when they get too crazy. They cannot, or maybe, if they're bored, they just, fiddle with their phone for a few seconds, and then again, go back to looking at the priest high up there at the altar, just listening and listening. Now, there is harm. I mentioned about harm that is long term. In Catholic schools in the Philippines, because I've been to at least 3 in my life. I had to transfer schools, all of them Catholic-run schools. We were required to attend Mass every Sunday. Not because some teacher will be there to check attendance, but we have, Catholic schools always has this subject about religion.
Mm-hmm.
In my first 2 schools, they just called the subject religion. So they didn't call it Buddhism, they didn't call it Catholicism or Christianity. Mm-hmm. They just call it religion. But but actually, the only religion we ever talked about is just Catholic. Christianity or Catholicism. They call it religion. But then when I moved to this 3rd school, they started being very precise about the name of the subject. They call it Christian Living Education. Yeah. It's a graded subject. It has a huge bearing in your average score towards the end of the term.
Wow.
And so you have to attend Mass, to listen to the homily, and then you write a reflection paper after. You submit it to the teacher the following Monday, and then you get a score that adds up to your total score at the end of the term. And sometimes they pick certain students to talk about their reflection paper in front of the class. So this has went on for years and years, not even before my generation, I suppose. And so it's really a very convenient harm, but definitely harm, to the person's intellect in the long term.
Oh yeah.
But definitely convenient for the person's standard of comfortability or maybe ease, in the short term. Unfortunately, I must say Filipinos have fallen prey to their own cognitive ease. Although many people like me, try to study hard and, try to see things from a scientific perspective, a logical perspective, there's still pretty many people out there in our hundreds of millions of population that would rather resort to just believing because they're too busy, because they don't care much about what's going to happen in the long term. And maybe they're just looking out for themselves. They don't bother looking after others at this point of their lives. And so it's not just physical harm or this thing we're talking about, the cognitive ease. It's also the real harm that have been the real harms that have been all over the news. We have pedophilia, we have mass suicides, just because of religion. We have civil unrest. These things are harm. You see them in the news, you see them on television. You could already tell this is not right. A priest abusing a child, or maybe an altar boy, and then we have civil unrest inspired by religion. When citizens protest against a religious minority maybe in the community that has kind of already earned a negative perception, maybe, for example, Islam being already linked to terrorism and violence, something like that. It divides people, it divides people so much. The fact that there are many churches just on this one planet, we can always talk about the main ones, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, and then Catholic. But then again, when you go deeper into these churches, there are more to them. So it's like an organizational chart that there's just these big ones, and they go further down, and you see more boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes. So it boxes people into different containers instead of just boxing them in just one planet.
Right.
We are one species, and so we are one species, and so religion can always be an option. And I've read somewhere that believing or forming some kind of religion is in the human nature, because it was part of our evolution. When we didn't have science, when we didn't have this period of enlightenment, as we called it, we only relied on the stars. We only relied on the signs from nature, and when we couldn't explain what's going on, we tell ourselves, oh, it's the spirit of the tree, it's the spirit of the sun, it's Mother Earth picked us up from our misery, and so on and so forth. And then as kingdoms are built, as armies are created by these kingdoms, these originally simple beliefs, of relying in nature, relying in your environment, or looking up to unseen spirits, evolve into religious politics, with Rome being with the Pope being a very popular political leader, in the early times. They had to affiliate themselves with kings and queens in order to stay in power. And also the many that have been killed in the Spanish Inquisition, and in the quest to dominate the world using one religion, and during those times. It's very horrible. There's always there is more harm that we could imagine, and it's gonna build up if nobody does anything about it.
Well, I need to go, so I appreciate your time, and I thank you for sharing your insights, and I will post a video, and see ya.
Thank you, Damien. It's nice talking to you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.